Okay, so we'll start off with session. So there is another slide which I have added because there was a question. So I tried to explain it a little bit in session, but then I thought, it's important because this is an extremely important strategy for each and every organization, because this is one of the strategy which drives all the processes of the organization, of the supply chain. So I thought of putting up something, on paper to try to differentiate between the MTO, that is made to order, and MTS, that is made to stocks. Okay, so in this spreadsheet, what you see here is on the left hand side you see MTO, that is made to order, and on the right hand side you see MTS, and in the center you see the characteristics. So how the MTO and MTS functionality differs with the characteristics is what we are trying to understand in this slide. So basically, for product or customer families, okay, if it is an MTO product, okay, that is made to order products, so we have very small amount of standard products, and most of these products which fall under the category of MTO is specialized product. These are these products which are designed specifically with some special functions for some special customers. So these are very special products, and I won't say that all the products are extremely special of nature, but there would be some products which may be of the standard nature, which are of the standard category, but they are not offered to each and every customer. So they are offered to limited customers. Wherein for the MTS, that is made to stock, this scenario actually works on the product focus, and there are a lot of standard products in the portfolio. So that's the characteristics of MTO and MTS with respect to the product and customer family. With respect to the customers, of course, MTO would have a few specialized customers who are actually requiring a very special products, for which they may offer you higher prices, because these products are not the off-the-shelf products. These are the special products. Similarly, the MTS is more regular products. So normally the prices are determined by the markets. They are not determined by the manufacturer, because there are a lot of competitors in the market, because of which you get this product at a competitive price. With respect to supplier base, that is the suppliers for the raw materials, packaging materials, so on and so forth. MTO has many suppliers because it's a specialized product. You need to always have the alternate supplier in place, because the price that you get for this product is much higher than the price that you get for the standard product. So if you have very less number of suppliers, and remember one thing, you are going to start the production or start the procurement of this product only upon receipt of customer order. So if you receive the customer order and if you do not have the adequate supply of raw material in place, and if you are dependent only on a single sole supplier, then you will end up in trouble. So MTO strategy, because it's highly priced, highly profitable, and specialized product, so there has to be more number of, or there has to be an alternate supplier strategy falling in place for MTO. Wherein for MTS, you can still manage with few suppliers, but this does not mean a single supplier. You can have multiple suppliers for MTS as well, but the nature of the product is standard. So you get, the raw materials from multiple suppliers, and they are mostly available in the stocks. With respect to resources, MTS, with respect to resources, we require a flexible workforce, flexible manpower, and sometimes a very specialized machinery for MTO. For MTS, the specialized machinery will be required, and workforces are basically standard. Okay, the demand of the product is for the MTO is extremely volatile, because this is specific product. Customer is only going to buy it when he actually needs it, because the prices are already high. So the variability of the demand, is extremely high. That's why you don't produce it in advance, because if you produce it in advance and keep in stock, then you will maybe end up in the dead inventory going forward. For the MTS, the demand is standard, and it's more or less predictable. And because you have a wide number of customers in place, if one of the customer does not place the order, you can go back and ship it to some other customer. Okay. So any questions so far with this?
All good. Thank you.
Okay. Capacity planning. Capacity are also not planned in advance because we cannot predict the demand. Okay. So everything starts for MTO after receipt of customer order. Okay. And for the MTS, because it's made to stock, normally based on the forecast, the products are already produced and kept in the warehouse so that they are available to customer whenever they place the order. So that's the reason you see the lead times are always higher for MTO, because they are not produced ahead of time. They are only produced after receipt of the order, wherein for the MTS, lead times is relatively much lower. Of course, prices I have already mentioned. The prices are negotiated with customer and always the prices are higher because they are called special products, wherein for the MTS, prices are fixed by the producers, but still they are at the market levels. You cannot overprice them because these products are available with a lot of other vendors. So that's a little bit of a summary about how the MTO and MTS products, differentiated. So any specific questions related to this, or we move on to the next slides?
We can move on. Yeah.
Okay. So Vaibhav, maybe after session, we shall close this session a little early, and then we actually log in to your system. Okay. And maybe you can share the screen, and we can just have a quick overview of what exactly you are doing currently in the IBP tool. Would that be fine?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, team. So we start off with session. Just we stopped at this particular slide, which was mainly talking about the design to operate process flow. So from demand planning now, okay, first in the first couple of days we focused on how the demand planning and the forecasting is done. Now in these days we are talking about mainly how the supply plannings are done. When we talk about the supply planning, we have to talk about the manufacturing capabilities, manufacturing footprints, and other supply planning related stuff. So design to operate functionality is part of supply planning group, and it's part of the overall supply to manufacture product. So it starts off with design, then plan, manufacture, deliver, and operate. So these are the main work streams of design to operate, or these are the main high level processes, starting from the product design, then planning for the product, then actually manufacturing the product, delivering the product, and operating the product. And this diagram, even though it looks very, very busy diagram, it actually talks about, the various offerings by the IBP system. Okay. So this does not mean that any organization would need to install all these systems in place, but based on the requirements from the organization, they can choose the one which best suits their requirement. So just to give you few examples, in the design phase, you have EPD. EPD stands for Enterprise Product Development. These are all terminologies related to the SAP IBP functionality. And at the bottom, you see, the abbreviations for all these terminologies or all these tools. So EPD stands for Enterprise Product Development. So this is basically used for the designing of the product. So IBP can provide you a kind of a flexible solution or a tool called as EPD. Within this EPD, you can do the collaboration, you can do the engineering drawing studies, you can, get the products connected, you can visualize the product, and so forth. So these are the tools which may be required for a manufacturing industry or for a company who's basically into designing new products and launching the products very frequently. So the companies who build the product based on the customer requirement, okay, what we call it as build to suit product, these companies may go for this kind of functionality of the IBP. The next one is basically IBP for SNOP, that is the one which is reflected in blue color. Okay, so this functionality is a very, very common functionality which can be useful for any industry. Okay, so planning is required for any manufacturing industry, and planning to certain extent can also be required by a service industry, because service industry also has their customer. They can also forecast how many customers will, for example, a call center. If you want to do the planning for the call center, because their revenue model basically works on the number of calls they attend or the number of solutions they provide to the complaints. So they can, in the forecasting process, they can kind of do the detailed analysis using the forecasting algorithms. For example, 6 months moving average kind of a thing, wherein they can identify how many people are calling every day and how many people are calling, average for the past 6 months. So similar people can also call for future 6 months. So this is how, the IBP can also be used for the service industries. Then the next, for the manufacturing industry, we have lots of options, because based on the manufacturing footprints, the systems are designed. So basic functionality of this system is to identify the issues and provide the flexible solutions. What we learned is basically, at a high level, some of the organizations have some unique processes, and some of the organizations have some unique processes and some standard processes. So for those unique processes, we have IBP providing the flexible solution. So this is basically the demonstration of that statement, wherein, IBP can provide these kind of tools for the manufacturing, for the delivery performance. You have S4TM, which is basically a transportation module. So IBP, within the platform of SAP HANA, they provide a transportation module as a tool, wherein you can engage, the transporter, the haulier in the tool. You can have everything fed for the transporter in the tool. For example, the cost of the transporter, the routes by which, he's going to deliver our product, the number of miles required for him to deliver the products, and the costing. So system will provide you, three vendors, for example, for a route of, let's say Houston to New York. If you want to deliver the product, then system will provide you a route of which route they need to follow. Okay, and which are the transporters. They will give L1, which is the lowest, which is the transporter providing the lowest freight rate. They will also propose L2, which is the next lowest, and the L3, which is the, little bit expensive vendor. So based on the service level, then the transport planner or the logistics planner takes the call as to whom he wants to engage, and then he may engage one of these transporter and get things done. So at the end of this transaction, you also can identify, the cost saving opportunities, and ultimately it will benefit the organization. So this is how, these various tools are available in the market. So based on your specific requirement, you can buy or you can install these tools. And these tools are also in the process. They are communicating with various others internal tools. They share the data, and these tools, the output of these tools can be 100% controlled at the level of supply chain control tower. So all these tools are operational under the umbrella of supply chain control tower, where, the inputs and outputs are controlled, and it gives you a final meaningful results. So at the bottom you see some of the color coding, which is also reflected in the specific boxes. For example, the box of IBP SNOP is blue. So that means that, this tool is deployed in the cloud. So IBP SNOP, IBP demand planning, inventory optimization, so on and so forth. All these tools can be deployed in cloud, similar to the one in the green. Okay, so you need to find out which one is in the green. Okay, so the asset management at the right hand side. This can be deployed also on the mobile. So this tool has a functionality of accessing the data of asset managers, on the mobile. That some of the tools needs to be installed in the premises, that is on the manufacturing platforms or on the supply chain platforms. Okay, so this is how the high level building blocks for design to operate works in under the umbrella of IBP. So any specific question related to this particular slide?
Nothing from my end. No, all good.
Okay, so this slide is again the extension of the previous slides, wherein we are talking about digital business planning in the intelligent environment or enterprise. So basically, this diagram actually talks about the relationship between the demand planning function and the supply chain control tower. So within demand planning functions, we have demand driven replenishment (DDMRP). That's what we discuss. So basically, demand-driven MRP is nothing but creating the requirement based on customer demand. Okay, so if the customer demand is flexible, then the supply availability is also flexible, and your supply chain is flexed to reduce the plan. Okay, so that inbuilt flexibility needs to be built in the process. Then the next one is response and supply. This is basically the gap between demand and supply. Then we have production planning, demand planning, inventory management, sales, and operations planning. So all these various functionalities are basically the business processes which talks about the end-to-end supply chain business process. And the models are basically extremely important for the revenue work stream, because demand planning and supply planning work streams are directly responsible for the revenue generation. On one side, the job of commercial team or the sales team is to get the customer order, but at the same time, the job of supply chain professional is to ensure that you need to have a flexible supply planning process to ensure that the revenues are met. So goes without saying that the processes should be synced with each other, as the planning processes are synced with all the other internal departments like supply chain and the warehouse logistics, so on and so forth. It needs to have a lot of end-to-end visibility at various levels, at the operational levels, strategic level, as well as practical levels, so that the data, information, and the reports are passed on to the next level. The planning cycles should be quick enough. For example, if we finalize the plan only once a month, okay, that can be treated as a forecast. And we agreed, at a very, very high level, everybody in the organization understands that forecast can never be accurate. So the only thing that is in our hand is to respond quicker to the changes in the demand. So the planning cycles needs to be shortened, and so that the forecast variability can be accommodated in the supply planning work streams. So this is also the extension of the earlier slide, okay, wherein we talk about real time scenario analysis as well as unified user experience. So real time scenario analysis is basically the real time scenarios, that is what's happening on a day to day level. So every day you get some kind of input from the IBP tool as to where exactly we are with respect to the KPIs. And over the period of time, we take the average of the performance, and then the reporting is done. So that's what we call as real-time planning and simulation capabilities. So in the figure, you can see a lot of different reports being generated. So all these reports are part of either direct IBP solutions, or they are part of one of the user interface. So you can create these reports, or you can design this report for once, and then based on the functionality of the system, they will keep on sending you the results as per your requirement. Are you with me? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we move on to the next slide. This also focuses on the integrated business planning, mainly on the sales and operation planning, is to balance the demand and supply. That's what we already understood. Increase the speed and agility, the flexibility within the planning function, and manage risk and assumption, so that maximum opportunities can be grabbed. Okay. Now in the next slide, you see that a little different picture of the IBP. So this is also the photo of or the picture of IBP. So where you can see, if you remember correctly, I had mentioned that based on the organization's requirement, they designed the IBP tool in such a way that it best suits their requirement. So this particular IBP picture is for that organization which has a lot of marketing activities, which are launching every time new products, which have a lot of promotional activities going on, and it can be best suited for a retail chain business. So at the left hand side, we start off with the right hand side, wherein you see the product management review. This is something what we have not, though we have discussed in the last sessions, but it was never focused area for the previous slides, because previous slides were more talking about the standard IBP process, but this particular picture is for a specifically designed IBP process of suiting the requirements as per the customer need. So in this scenario, you see a product management review. In this, you have portfolio management. So in this organization, there would be a department called as product management department, and this department predominantly does the portfolio management review. So they check, they check the product life cycle. So do you all understand what exactly is the product life cycle? Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So
Okay, so every product has certain life cycles, and during this life cycle, there is a first stage which is called as a launch stage when the product is launched. Then after a certain level, it slowly grows, the demand grows. And after a certain point in time, it reaches the maturity level. So at the maturity level, there is a high demand for that product. Okay, so the product is at a peak, and each and every product falls under this scenario of a product life cycle. Okay, sometimes for some product it takes ages to reach the maturity level. For example, a very standard product, it will take about 10 years to reach the maturity level, and after the maturity level is reached, it will stay in the maturity levels for few years when the demand is stable for this product, and slowly it will show a decline phase. And in the decline phase, the demand for the product drops, and slowly this product needs to be converted into some different products. So the fastest product life cycle in scenario is for the smartphones. Okay, as you can see, they have a very short product life cycle span. You see, every month or every 2 months, we see a completely new smartphone with new product functionality comes in the picture in the market. So what happens is, these are the products which are basically very quick in the launch process, because if they delay the launch process, then they lose out on the market share with the technology that they want to introduce to the market. And similarly, once these products are launched, they reach the maturity level extremely fast within a couple of months' time. And that is the time when they have a very peak demand. So that's the job of a product management team, to identify the life cycle of these products, because very soon they are going to have a decline phase, and they are going to eventually die and get converted into a new product, into a completely new set of product. So product management plays extremely vital role in this process, because if they do not project the demand in proper way, then the manufacturing guys will keep on producing it, and at the end the product will reach its decline stage, but the company would have huge amount of stocks in the warehouse. Okay, so that's the reason they do a portfolio management, wherein they review each and every product, their behavior, their life cycle, as to which stage they are in, and the potential growth or the potential decline is there, and they identify this, and this input they provide to the demand review.
Hey, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So product management, what the group of product management team will do is they will analyze the details of the product and they will give the input at the product level to the demand review team. Okay, so demand review team in the demand review, because they're finalizing the forecast, they will consider the input from the product management team and they will discuss with the commercial team as this is the input I received from product management team and they anticipate product X is going to get declined in the forecast because it is already reached its maturity level and it's towards the decline phase in the product life cycle. Similarly, the job of product management team as well as the marketing team is to work very closely and identify some of the demand boosters. When I say demand boosters, like for example some of the offerings or schemes which will be rolled out in the market which can improve the demand for a short period of time. So for example, if they feel that the market is behaving slowly, then they may introduce a special scheme of for example buy one get one free. So that is the reason you see a huge in the demand for a short period of time, and then they will either liquidate their inventory. That is one benefit that they get out of it, or they will increase their holds because they know after a couple of months, this product is going to be obsolete. So this is how they provide the input to the demand review. The demand review team, they take all these inputs and they finalize with the commercial guys the consensus forecast like he's doing with his team and you all must be doing with your respective sales teams. The rest of the things in the IBP for certain industries follows in the same way as we have for other industries. For example, supply review will happen in the same manner as it is for other industries. The strategic business performance, the management review also happens in the same way. So for this organization, the only change with respect to the other standard organization is the product management review, because this organization is marketing driven and it has some specific unique requirement. So IBP provides or considers all these unique requirements, and based on that, they would give you a specific offering which best suits your requirement. So any specific question? So I'll move on. Okay. Now this slide is exactly the same task which Vaibhav has explained when I asked him how exactly is your demand review takes place. So at a high level, I am fully aligned with on whatever activities he is doing. They are within the scope of IBP and they are being followed quite well. Okay, but when we get into the deep dive, we'll of course get more insight to improve his internal process. It will help him once we are there in the training session. So in the initial stage, each contributor to the planning process has their own planning view. Okay, so basically each planner defines his views, how they want to see the tool. Okay, so when we get into the tool, we will check how to design the tool so that you can get into the tool faster and you can see what exactly is of your interest. Okay, then the next step is in the first step, basically the sales forecast is entered by the commercial team and then it is reviewed by their respective managers, and finally they are given to supply chain. All the supply chain has all the time visibility of what's going on in the IBP forecasting tool. The step number 2 is to arrive at the consensus, okay, by getting into the discussion or challenging the commercial or sales team in healthy manner. And end of step 2, we need to have the consensus forecast in place. It is extremely important to get the concurrence from the commercial team and their agreement. Otherwise, if there is no agreement, then it can lead to a potential conflict at the later stage, during the management review or during the action plan generation. So in the stage number 2, it's extremely important to have the consensus forecast agreed between the sales team as well as the supply chain team. Then the next step you can see here, is to load the consensus forecast into the into the demand planning tool, and from there it is automatically transmitted to the supply planning tool, whichever tool the organization is following. So at this time the RCCP, that is rough cut capacity plan, or the capacities are in place. So if there are no capacities in place or if there are inadequate capacities in place, then of course the escalation goes to the management team for the investment or capacity enhancement. And once this is finalized, then the step number 4 at a high level is the MPS generation, which is the master production schedule. So master production schedule is the master plan, which is normally frozen for a period of 1 month, or it can also vary based on the manufacturing footprint or based on the process. Because if some of the process is extremely highly specialized, and if the changeover time is much higher, then the frozen window is higher. For example, if you want to change over from product A to product B, and the changeover time is much higher, like for example 4 to 5 days, then you kind of run a campaign. The campaign is a terminology for continuous production. Okay, so you run the campaign for 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, you will run only single products on the machine, so that it does not need any changeover and it will give the desired output. Okay, and after 2 weeks only you are afford to do the changeover, because you're going to lose 3 to 4 days in the changeover time. So this all decisions are taken at the operational level by the operational planning group in the IBP, and the plans are finalized and executed and then communicated to the production team. Any specific questions, or Victoria or Shana?
No questions from me.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, well, I have one question quickly. So we do, campaign a lot of products here for the plant I plan for, which is a blending plant. I just wanted to know, how would you differentiate between a campaign and a stock build? What's the key distinction between the two?
Okay, the campaign and the stock build. Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so campaign is basically designed. Okay, it is. See, the campaign proposals are mainly driven by the manufacturing team. Okay, and the basic difference between the two is campaigns are decided by manufacturing organization, and the stock levels decisions are mainly driven by the supply chain organization. So these are the basic level difference. Okay, so the campaigns are more supported by manufacturing team, because if you look at the thought process of the manufacturing team members, they always try to maintain the cost of changeovers, and it takes a lot of efforts and time to change over. So they will always want you to run the products for a longer period of time. But having said this, at any point in time you should not have the campaigns just to avoid cost, and which will end up in building the excess inventory. So on one side, when you decide the campaign, it has to be considering the inventory target. For example, what can happen if you say that your manufacturing team requires a couple of days of changeover time, and the cost associated with the changeover time is let's say $10,000. Okay, but we can understand this $10,000 is the cost which can be certainly avoided, or which can be certainly deferred in a particular month. But consider the example in saving the cost of $10,000. If you end up generating the inventory for $100,000, and this inventory, if it is going to sit in your books for let's say next 3 to 4 months, then this is not the right decision to avoid the cost for 10,000, because at the end you are penalizing your working capital by having excess inventory in place. So for such scenarios, you should have the stock norms or the stock building policies, and based on the stock building policies, you should take your campaign. Does it answer your question?
That was helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah, good for me.
Okay. So next one is also the extension of the previous slides. Okay. So it talks about basic statistical forecasting, then the forecasting models, the rough cut capacity planning, the forecast error, so and so forth. So basically, all the activities that are done in the demand planning or supply planning process, they are all linked to certain KPIs and certain targets. Okay, so all these processes must be robust enough to meet the KPIs target. So if at the end of the day, if we are not meeting the KPIs consistently for the number of months, then we need to go back and redesign our processes because something is going wrong somewhere. Okay, so that's how the IBP would give you the triggers in terms of alerts mechanism, and there are other graphical representation which will help you to identify that something is going wrong somewhere which needs to be fixed. Again, the next point here is the demand plan. Okay, we have to collaborate with the team members for the most accurate forecast. But having said this, there is nothing like most accurate forecast in reality. Forecasts are always forecast. Unless we get the customer orders, the forecast is only a piece of number on paper. So the only point that we can think about is how to reduce the gap in the forecast, how to maintain the certain level of bias in the forecasting accuracy process, and how fast can we react to the change in the short-term demand. That's extremely important. So forecast has its own merits and demerits, but what we can certainly design is, how flexible is our supply planning to react to the forecast. So there has to be extremely high focus on, reacting fast to the changes in the demand. So from supply planning perspective, some of the activities that can be done is to have the flexible manufacturing footprints. Okay, so that means the changeover time should be less, and the changeover cost should also be less. There has to be alternate suppliers arrangements so that we do not stop the production line because of the lack of supplier. And uh, and the manufacturing lead time, you need to try and always do the kind of a process mapping to understand what exactly is taking much longer time for us to produce. So you will, at the end of the process mapping, you will understand where exactly is the delay, and then you can define certain actions and reduce those gaps. So this is how, the normal organization is always trying to improve on the KPIs at the various levels. Okay, now IBP for demand, how the apps are, used here. So user-friendly apps for specific functionality, like you can see here, the pop-up window number one says that, manage forecast models. Okay. Similarly, the other point number two says that powerful and flexible pre-processing steps. Okay. So these are the master data level inputs, which you can design and feed in your IBP model so that it generates a meaningful output. On number four, you can see that, the forecasting methods. So these are basically the forecasting algorithm. I don't know if you're able to see this. I will try to maximize this little bit. Is it visible now? This one?
Yeah,
The
it is.
forecasting algorithms. So you can see that, you have many algorithms which are of standard nature, and there can be many combinations of these algorithms. Okay. For example, a single exponential smoothing can be combined with double exponential smoothing, and you can have a completely different set of algorithms. Similarly, the weighted moving average and customs method or Crompton's method, this can also be fixed together. So there are methodologies in place which will work for you. So if you understand, the business analytics, if you try to crunch your data, you will identify the product behavior. Okay. And based on the product behavior, you can also design the algorithm so that your statistical forecast is more accurate than your human forecast. Because to be very honest, even though, the sales team is continuously in discussion with the customers, there is always a judgmental factor comes in the forecasting process by the human intervention. So just because the customer feels that he will be able to deliver so and so product, to the same message he will pass on to our sales team, and our sales team will also consider the customer input, which is eventually based on some assumptions. So system does not work on the assumptions, they work on the set of data and the mathematics. So system will more proactively give you the number, the meaningful number, which actually triggers a kind of a doubt in your mind, and then you go back and check with commercial team for certain products, whether this really makes sense to go ahead and project, the forecast at this level, something like that. So that is how, the various functionalities is used in this scenario in the IBP. And IBP is extremely flexible tool to give you, all these functionalities. Here, the point number 3, choose the best forecast. If you select this, system will run all these algorithms for a particular customer material forecast combination, and system will check, which one is giving the result. So that all happens in the background. So system will run, for example, triple exponential smoothing, and it will check the accuracy result, okay, the projected forecast accuracy result. And for example, this will give the result of 80% forecast accuracy. Then the moving average 6 may give the result of 90% forecast accuracy, something like that. So similarly, all these simulations would end up with projecting some level of accuracy. And then if you select this, choose the best forecast, then system will choose the best forecast with maximum level of accuracy, which becomes an input for you to compare, the manual forecast and go back to the commercial team and have a healthy discussion on finalizing the consensus forecast. So at the end of the day or in the end of the month, when you actually measure, even system may go wrong. I'm not saying that system is always right, because forecast is forecast and demand has its own role to play. So in the end of the month, it may also happen that system is wrong. But over the period of time, if you tabulate, the manual forecast versus system forecast, it is proved that, system forecast gives better results than the manual forecast, because of the mathematics and because of the simulations that system does. So any specific questions so far?
Nothing from me.
No questions really, but I think when we get to actually use the QA system, I think it'll sync better.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope to get this set as soon as possible, so that, because sometimes this just PPT slides and presentation becomes extremely monotonous, and then we lose out on the interest level. So it's always better to have, a flex of the combination of the practical experience as well as the knowledge. So I'll try to fix the issue as soon as possible so that we can get into the system. We understand what you are doing currently and how, the IBP can be improved for the processes that you follow. Okay, so moving on to the next slide is to sense the short-term demand. Okay, now this is the short-term demand, which is for the near future, that is either for the current month or for next 2 to 3 months, based on the definition of the organization for the short-term demand. Now, if you see here in the graph, in the picture, there is one national distribution center. Distribution center is nothing but a warehouse which distribute goods to the customers across the region and across the countries wherever the customer based. So at in the graph, in the picture, you can see the East Coast there is one distribution center, and on the West Coast there is one distribution center. So the number 4444 is the forecast, and the 5555 is the forecast for the West Coast distribution center. And on top of that, there is 02477 is the actual sales. So that's how normally happens in the short-term scenario. In the most short-term scenario, you have a very widely disrupted forecasting accuracy, because that's the reality of the world. You might have thought that 2 months ago that we will produce and we will sell a certain amount of products in, let's say, in the month of August. But when you actually come to the month of August, the entire ball game is changed, because the market dynamics have changed, the surrounding environments have changed, which has impacted the demand. So there has been a lot of changes in the surrounding and in the conditions of the market. So in actual, you end up either selling less or you end up selling more. So there is a lot of volatility in the near future. So that's why, in the near future, you see a big impact on the inventory. And over the period of time, if you see that the inventory level, if you map the inventory graph and you try to do the trend line, it will give you the trend line whether the inventory is going up or it is going down. So this is how you need to be extremely predictable for the demand requirement. Okay. And the extremely important point here is, the flexibility in the supply planning process. So you can see the graphs, how the demand is behaving and how, the supply, the forecast is behaving with respect to the demand. This is a real scenario which is happening everywhere for most of the organizations. Like we predict something and we end up selling something different. Okay, so some of the additional functionality which IBP offers is advanced statistical forecasting. Okay, when I say advanced statistical forecasting, it only means that the number of algorithms are high. Okay, so there are a lot of different levels of designs of algorithm, which gives you different level of output. Then we have pre-process correction capabilities. Okay, this is the functionality which tells you, gives you the alerts as to something is going wrong. So we have to fix something in the process so that the output is fixed. So that is called as pre-process correction capability. So you have to do the correction in the process before it actually gets triggered. Then the promotions, trade promotions, and demand shaping process, like for example, for the trade promotions, whenever you are planning the promotional activities, you will see a big spike in the demand. So one point is this is good for the revenue because the revenue is increased for the particular period. But in the subsequent month, you see a drop in the demand sometimes. Okay, because the products were sold based on the special promotional activities. So in that case, when you do the forecasting for such products, you will see a big outliers in the historical data, and your job is to basically smoothen these outliers so that it does not end up in procuring or producing more materials for the future period. Demand sensing, we already discussed how to sense the demand. Okay, the predictability and the requirements of the demand. The next one is ABC and XYZ segmentation calculation. So, okay, so this is an extremely urgent and important topic, about the ABC analysis or XYZ analysis. So, do you do the ABC or XYZ analysis or segmentation in your organization, Webo, Victoria?
I'm going to say no because this is the first I'm hearing of it, so I'm going to say no.
Okay, then I will try to, because this does not talk much about the ABC analysis, but I will try to prepare something in next 2 to 3 days and try to explain you how exactly the ABC or XYZ analysis, is helpful, because this is an extremely important topic, which we'll cover in the subsequent sessions. So ABC analysis, basically it talks about how your product is behaving, and it's a standard rule, at the end of the analysis you will find that 20% of your product, okay, let's say if you have 1,000 products, only 20% of your product is generating the 80% of your revenue. So for example, if you are talking about an organization who's got 1,000 product in its portfolio and they are generating, let's say, $1 million of revenue every month. So when you do the ABC analysis, you will find results somewhere close to this, wherein you will find that out of 1,000 products, only 200 products are performing well, and these 200 products are contributing to the 80% of the revenue. So for example, the 1,000 products were generating $1 million of revenue. So only 200 products are generating $800,000 of revenue. So balance 800 products just generating $200,000 of product. So the first action that would come out of this analysis is, you don't keep inventory for these $200,000. Okay. One of the option is you made this product as MTO, made to order. You are only going to produce it when you receive the order from the customer, because they are not contributing much high to your revenue portfolio. So you might as well not keep the huge inventory and block the working capital. Okay, so something like this, I won't say that this is the exact decision that you would take, because some of these products may also be bought by some critical customers, which are buying the other 200 products. So they may, being a critical customer in nature, they may still insist for the demand. But basically, something like this will come out of the segmentation. So this ABC predominantly works on the value and volume contribution, wherein XYZ analysis works on the variability. Okay. So the combination of ABC and XYZ will give you a 9-box segmentation. This is called as a 9-box segmentation. So you can draw a rectangle, you can draw a square, and within this square you get 9 boxes. And in these 9 boxes, you place all your products, as to which product is falling in which particular box. And based on these 9 boxes, you will have a different supply chain strategy. For example, a product which is having extremely high demand contribution, okay, which is A class product, and extremely low variability, okay, which is variability wise, it is Z. So this product is the most profitable product, and you need not invest more in this. By investing less in this product, by keeping, the less amount of raw materials for this product, you end up earning more profit to the organization. So that's the reason I said, ABC, XYZ analysis is extremely important. So I will try to put up some slide pack, information to this, so that we can have a drill down, and even we can check how this can be, introduced in the IBP in the sessions to come. Okay, is this good?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The next one is product life cycle, which we already discussed. So product life cycle, you all said that you are aware. So we need not get into the details of that, right? Or you want some level of deep dive also in this to understand how actually the product life cycle runs.
I think not a deep dive. High level is okay, or we can move on.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so advanced for forecast error algorithm. Okay, so this is nothing but the error in the algorithm, or the accuracy level, to look at it positively.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Pre and post forecasting process. So this is basically the functionality which is provided by the IBP for demand. And if at all you are not using ABC or XYZ, even if you don't do it in the IBP for some reason, you can still get this ABC XYZ analysis done, in the Excel spreadsheet, and try to devise some meaningful actions out of that. So next is basically, now after demand, we are switching over to the inventory optimization. Okay, because inventory plays a vital role in the entire value chain process, and it is equally important to have the optimal level of inventory to have a better health of the organization, because inventory, as I mentioned, in the balance sheet, it is treated as a liability. Okay, but for the manufacturing and the sales team, we always consider it as an asset, because the sales guy will say that I don't have inventory, so what will I sell? So if we have good amount of inventory, the sales team is always happy, because this they consider as asset, and they can book many spot orders from the market at better price, because if the competitor does not have the inventory and they require this product, they can buy this product from you because you are carrying the inventory. And because competitor does not have the inventory, you can also quote the higher price. That's the sales strategy, sometimes helps to maximize the revenue. Similar to that, then reduce the production and distribution cost. Of course, this is extremely important. The production cost, meaning cost of changeovers, the alternate supplier development, the alternate material development, the low cost material development, lean manufacturing process, reduce the gap between the two processes, reduce the wastage. There are a lot of activities which can be done in the inventory optimization, and product and distribution cost can be reduced significantly. Then the next is inventory target setting. Okay, so there has to be a scientific method in defining the targets for the inventory. It should not be judgmental. So your inventory targets should be based on some calculation, calculation of your raw material lead times, calculation of your service levels, what exactly is your desire to have the service levels. So all your inventory targets should be based on the scientific background or scientific data. Okay, so with this, we move on to the end of second module. Okay, we'll just quickly start off with the agenda. So this topic mainly focuses on the inventory and supply planning functionalities. So IBP for inventory, then inventory dilemma, then what are the inventory policies, and what additional functionalities does IBP offer in the inventory planning, then response and supply planning, then order level supply planning, demand driven replenishment, DDMRP, what we discussed a little bit about, then five components of demand driven MRP, so on and so forth. So we'll get into the third module, third part of first module. Okay. Now IBP for inventory. Now the issue is, inventories are everywhere in the various levels of the organization. Okay. So companies are facing a lot of problem with supply chain risk due to economic and uncertainty, and which is leading to the escalations and stuff like that. So there are a lot of economic changes which are taking place across the world, and in the current scenario, most of the countries are globally connected to each other, and there is a lot of global interactions and global distribution of material takes place. So any small country or any big countries, if it faces some kind of a crisis, so it has a multiple level of impact on the other countries with respect to, the supply chain and other stuff. So just to give an example, of best example is the COVID, but eventually all the countries were badly impacted by COVID. So the impact was equally distributed over the period of time. But the another example is the war between Ukraine and Russia. These have also created some amount of disruptions in the global supply chain. Okay, in the availability of the materials, availability of the crude oil, something like that. So there was a lot of issues and a lot of economic uncertainty which is impacting, the supply chain organization. And this is really impacting the business at large, because if the inventories are not there, then the prices go high in the market, and then we end up losing money instead of gaining the money. So we need to have a very, very good amount of control in the supply chain process, so that any such crisis would have minimal impact. I won't say we will have zero impact, but the impact can be reduced at least to a certain extent, and the flexibility can be built in. So what is the inventory dilemma? Now you see here is the on paper, this looks to be a very, very complex supply process. You see there are a lot of distribution, there are a lot of manufacturing. Like the one, this is called a factory. Okay, are you able to see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the factory, and then we have some production plants, and then we have some warehouses and stuff like that. Okay, so the suppliers, so the company is shipping the goods at the various locations, and inventory is everywhere. Some inventory is in the pipeline, some inventory is at the warehouse, some inventory is in the plant, so on and so forth. So it's extremely important, first of all, to have the visibility of all the inventory across the value chain. Okay, and it is also important to have the control on this value chain. So at any given point in time, the inventory planner is always in the dilemma as to where he needs to control the inventory. Is it at the end customer level? Okay, is it at the main distribution warehouse level, and so on and so forth. So it is extremely important for the inventory planner, okay, to rightly balance the inventory based on the demand for the particular region. So that's the reason IBP provides you a very, very good solution to manage this activity within the IBP. And then the system intelligence will have its own processes, own parameters, which will trigger and drive, the inventory distribution across the various levels. So we move on to the next slide. Okay. Now, how do we define the inventory policy? On the left-hand side graph, okay, you see here the customer service level in percentage, and on the y-axis you see the inventory, and this is how the inventory is growing. So if you see here, when the customer service level is 90%, you have the least inventory in dollars. Okay. So as you progress with respect to the inventory, or as you increase your inventory, the customer service level also increases because there is stock in hand. And most of the customers, because they also have their internal controls. So for them, we are the suppliers. So they want to maintain, their KPIs, so they always try to defer, the order placement, the purchase order placement on us, because the moment they place the purchase order, that becomes being a legal document. It's become their obligation to accept the inventory. So at any given point in time, you will always have many customers who place the purchase order and they require products, or sometimes they require product. So they will say that I wanted this product, so I'm already late. So I'm placing you the purchase order. So you please try and deliver this product as soon as possible. So you can only achieve this objective if you have higher amount of inventory in your stocks. So if your inventory is in stock, you can immediately bill it to the customer. So your service level is increased. So service level is directly proportional, to the inventory levels that we are carrying. So if you want to have a good amount of service level, then you have to have good amount of inventory as well, which will impact your P&L to a certain extent. So it's extremely important, to have a right balance between the inventory and the service level. And the another topic is mix of inventory. Now there are various products which are being manufactured, or which are sold by the organization. So each product will have its different behavior or different pattern in which it's performing. So based on the behavioral pattern, the forecasting is done for this product, and similarly, the inventories are also targeted based on the product behavior. So it's important to have the right mix of inventory for the right mix of product, and this can be better handled in the ABC XYZ analysis. So you will see the products which are extremely volatile in nature, they should be having least amount of inventory. Otherwise, we end up, creating the obsolete inventory. So any specific questions on this? Okay. The next slide is on the additional functionality about the supply chain or supply planning function. Is to calculate the variability of the supply chain. Like we mentioned that we will do the ABC and XYZ analysis to calculate the variability of the demand plan or the forecast. Similarly, we can check the variability of the supply plan as well, as to what was the plan, and how much was the variation in the plan versus actual. So that's how the supply variability is calculated. To set the corporate, customer, and location service level. So service levels can be measured at the various locations. It can be a plant, it can be a warehouse, and it can be any other location. So all the service levels can be set fed in the tool, and it can be recorded and measured. So inventory targets measure the production plan, also defines the inventory target. So monetize the recommendation by the IBP, and so that the working capital is managed in better way. So system will automatically give some kind of an inputs to improve the working capital. For example, if you set the service level, you will get the inventory target, what needs to be inventory. Perform forecast error calculation, so you can anticipate what is could be the potential forecast error. So that could be, the potential inventory error as well. Because if you produce based on the forecast and if forecast is 20% wrong, then your inventory target setting is also 20% wrong to that extent. Shall we move on? Okay. Now, the next point that we are going to discuss about is the response and the supply planning. Okay, this is the next box in the IBP diagram. So we have to support the rough cut capacity planning process. Okay. So what is rough cut capacity planning process? So rough cut capacity planning is called as RCCP. Okay. So IBP has a functionality of, identifying all your machines with their capacities. Okay. So for example, if you have a product which undergoes 10 different machines. Okay, so 10 different machines would have their 10 different capacities. Okay, so based on your demand plan, if once the demand plan is finalized and once the supply plan is in the process of calculation, IBP can perform RCCP functionality, which is rough cut capacity planning, and it can identify what are the bottlenecks. So, for example, if your plan is, let's say, 10,000 pounds, and all your equipments are well equipped to handle this production plan, but one of your equipment is, cannot handle this and they can only produce 8,000 pounds, then that becomes your bottleneck. So in this scenario, IBP will prompt that, this is the bottleneck because of which you cannot produce 10,000. So that becomes a constrained supply. Okay. And then for this scenario, your commitment to the commercial or the sales team is only 8,000 pounds. And during the supply review process and the, response and supply planning, there is a gap between demand and supply. You show a gap of 2,000 pounds. And the reason for that is, equipment X does not have the adequate capacity. And that becomes the input to the top management team, whether they need to invest. If it is a one-time issue, then they may not invest in this. If it is recurring issue for every single month, then it's worth investing in the different machine. So that's how, the overall efficiency is improved. The overall capex budgets are planned using, the IBP process. Now, the next one, which I see at the bottom, is basically allocation to ATP. Do you all know what is ATP?
Is it availability to promise?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Spot on. This is basically, the products which is available to promise to the customer. So in SAP, if you have the ATP at the plant level, system will check the order which is about to get input, and system will check the stocks and give the promise date to the customer that because I have the stocks in place, I can promise you the date of, let's say, 5th of August. If there is no stock, and if the production plan is in place, if there is a planned order against the production, which is expecting a production on 15th of August, then system will prompt the date, delivery date as 15th of August. So this is called as available to promise within the plant. Now, in a wider organization, if the organization is spread amongst various countries, and if there are various different manufacturing plants in the different countries, then system will check, the availability across all the plants, all the globe. And in that case, this is called as a GATP, that is global ATP. So that means for the customer in the United States, system can check the stocks in China and system can allocate, the material to this customer. If, of course, if it makes sense to ship it from China to US. So, of course, it depends on the freight costs and other stuff as well. So that's, the kind of functionalities offered in the IBP process. So moving on to the next slide, again, in the supply planning work stream, we have a lot of algorithms and a lot of settings at the background, which pops up the constrained as well as unconstrained supply. It checks the rough cut capacity plan and gives you the input as to what is right, what is wrong. Multi-level sourcing, as I mentioned, if there are multiple suppliers, then even IBP can distribute your supply plan at a different different suppliers based on the input in the master data. We optimize inventory targets which are set in the IBP. then the visibility improves and scenario planning capabilities, because IBP can develop 3, 4, 5 different scenarios as to, what exactly will help you, to best to reduce the gap between demand and supply. Then it's basically the decision of planner to select the best fit and, discuss with commercial team and maximize their revenue. So next slides are related to supply allocation planning. Okay, we know if the product's availability is under constraint and if the demand is high, then the allocation process comes into picture. So this allocation is decided by the sales team or the finance team or the top management team. So based on the profitability or based on the critical customer parameter, the products will be allocated to the customer. Response planning, meaning creating the order confirmation and adopting the sales order based on the availability of the material and giving the commitments to the customer service team as well as to the customer based on the availability of the material, so that at the end customer gets the product when they are actually promised in the beginning. Deployment planning is basically create the deployment plan. Okay, deployment plan is nothing but deploying the plans to the various machines so that the machines are utilized with good amount of efficiency and it delivers the output which is required by the planner. This all process works on tightly integrated information from the ERP. So as we seen in last couple of days, in the graph wherein on the left hand side we have all the processes like ERP, then MRP, which is giving the inputs to the IBP, and IBP is processing the data and giving the meaningful output. So all these processes are tightly bound with each other and they communicate very frequently with each other. Okay, moving on the next slide. This is order-based confirmation. So basically you can see that, based on the supply plan availability, the system or IBP is confirming the order. And to a certain extent, you see that some of the orders are partially confirmed because the supply plan is partially available. Okay, like for example, in this case, you see only 45 EA% is confirmed, wherein 55% is unconfirmed because the products are not ready. Wherein for some the red marks, you see that the 100% of the products are not confirmed because there is some issue with the availability of the product. So maybe a couple of more slides we'll take and then we switch over to Web. Okay, so demand-driven replenishment, DDMRP. So basically, this helps in smooth flow of material throughout the supply chain. Okay, and reduce the gaps, the nervousness within the demand versus supply gaps. So for the demand-driven MRP, normally the lead times are better and they are always improved because the supply cycle immediately starts as soon as the customer real order is punched in the system. So when the order comes automatically, the production starts and there is a very less amount of manual intervention. So this gives a good amount of flexibility within the supply chain, and it in effect, the delivery lead times in reduced. Of course, with the reduction in the delivery lead times, also inventory reduces across supply chain, and strategic decoupling points. Decoupling is nothing but disengagement. Okay, that means disengaging the material for certain products and engaging the material for certain products. And of course, there are buffer zone, meanings the spare capacity in place. So in case of some products which are seasonal in nature, the producer always needs to have some kind of a buffer capacity, and sometimes it is also called as a burst capacity. Like your average capacity may be 10,000 pounds a month, but at any given time, if you see a spike in the demand, you can use your burst capacity and you can produce up to 20,000 pounds, almost double the products.